I'm in the queue.
Perfect, perfect. All right. Well, it does look like we are at 31 people. I'll just give everybody one more minute just to get connected in. The number is fluctuating just a little bit, so. All right, Steph says there's 32 of us. We're down to 30 right now. So you can see over here in the chat, Steph sent a message, Megan sent a message. So if you have any questions for Jan or I during the conversation today, please feel free to just type them in there. We'll do our best to keep an eye on those. Again, once I share my screen, I'm not sure what I'll be able to see, but Megan is here to help us out with the chat in case there's anything that comes up as well. So Jan and I are going to be going back and forth. Mostly Jan, she is the expert. I am just the technology person here to help her out. So thank you so much for joining us. Again, we are so sad that we don't have youth exchange happening again this year, but we definitely understand due to the current pandemic, not safe, and we want to make sure that we're ready and we're prepared for the future exchanges. So let me go ahead and just share my screen here. And let me know if you can see it or anybody.
I can see it.
Okay, perfect.
And then you appear smaller underneath. You, Jan, and I are smaller underneath.
Okay.
Perfect. All right, so we've got a bunch of information for you tonight. Again, like I said, between Jan and I, we're going to cover all the details, but we welcome any questions. So please jump in and suggest questions. If you've got a story to share, feel free to make that known in the chat as well, and we can work to get you on the screen, share your video, share your audio at that time too. So we'll just go through and cover some details here. Let me click. Okay.
All right.
So Jan, I'll let you get started.
Okay, I'll do a quick introduction. I think a lot of you probably on the screen already know me, but I'm the district chair for Youth Exchange in 6250. My background is I've been a member of the Oregon Rotary Club since they allowed women in, which is the late 80s, I think. And I have been passionate about youth exchange that whole time. I worked as a youth exchange counselor. I still am for my club, but my husband and I have hosted a number of exchange students. My eldest son went out on exchange to Brazil, is now living in my house with his Brazilian wife and 2 kids. So it's part of what we live and breathe. So those of you that don't know me, that's what that's all about. I think most of you know, if you've been involved, that Rotary International made a decision fairly recently to suspend youth exchange activities until June 30th, 2022. The reasons were many, primarily centered around safety and COVID, the fact that we can't travel, that a lot of borders are closed, that different countries have different immunization rates. And the bottom line, we want to make sure when the program opens that to the best of our ability, we know kids will be safe. And therefore, it's being postponed. But hopefully, we'll be back in action in July 2022 for both short-term exchange that summer and long-term exchange in the fall. Those of you that have experienced youth exchange know that one of the first steps is your clubs need to commit to hosting, and you'll be seeing commitment forms come to all clubs probably late May, early June. Those of you that don't know this, our youth exchange program is part of Central States, which consists of 20 different districts, not all of them in Wisconsin. They cover parts of the Midwest and Canada. And we need commitment forms in July, if possible, so that our country correspondents can begin to make arrangements with other countries as to how many kids that we'll be able to support. So if you can't get them to me by July, we generally will take them through the summer and early fall, but we can plan best if we have those early. So those will be coming out again this year for going out on exchange in the fall of 22. So a year ahead. You can change the screen.
Yeah, so I just wanted to add in, so even though Youth Exchange is technically on hold, as you heard from Jan, the planning never stops. She's already thinking light years ahead of us. One of the other things that we want to make sure that we are talking about, again, like I mentioned, is the planning phase, making sure that we're having those right conversations with our school districts and with our clubs and figuring out how to keep ourselves engaged in that planning piece of the puzzle. So don't think that you get time off. Your time is ending shortly. May is coming just around the corner, and Jan will be knocking at your door for us to get more exchange students on our roster. So,
Jan, we have a question from one of our participants.
Okay.
Is it Jack?
Yes.
Jack
he wants to know when the commitment form. What will the commitment form be sent to the club president or to the club YEO?
Probably both, if we know who the club YEO is. During this past year, some clubs have opted not to have background check renewals and that sort of thing. So I don't know if I can pull all of those names. And we are always looking for new clubs to join. And so certainly if we get new clubs, I won't know who the YEO is. So it's important if you're interested in your club. I know you, Jack, and I know that you will get a copy of it. But if you're not somebody who was involved recently in exchange, then be talking to your club president and saying, you know, when this comes, we need to talk about whether or not our club wants to commit.
Tony, that's a really good suggestion. Tony suggested that we could get the commitment form online to download as needed. Jan, is that something that we could do with Heather and Ian at the district?
Sure.
Perfect. All right. Any other questions around the commitment forms at all? All right. So here is what Jan and I have been spending all of our Sunday afternoons working on for the last
many months.
4-6 months now, Jan.
No, it's a long time.
So like I mentioned in our introduction earlier today, Rotary International has directed all of us who are participating in youth activities to formulate and build and follow a crisis management plan going forward. So this is a Rotary International mandated document. And basically what we have come up with is a document that provides guidance and training to your club during a crisis. Right now, we have 23 pages of really, really great information, a lot of step-by-step instructions of who to call for what, when, and how, as well as crisis debriefing forms, recommendations for what to do after a crisis is done, and how to appropriately document and follow all of the necessary steps. We are seeking district board approval for the crisis management plan on May 5th. That's our upcoming district board meeting. Once it is finalized, it will be reviewed in the annual trainings that all of our youth exchange YEOs and YECs participate in, and it'll also be posted on the district website. I'm not 100% certain if it will be part of the district learning plan that exists or if it'll be a separate link, but we'll make sure to pass all of that information along. I would like to pat Jan on the back for encouraging us to keep going, keep planning, keep moving along in this process. We recently found out that a lot of other clubs are behind the game. They didn't do the planning. They didn't do the meetings. They didn't spend their Sunday afternoons together. And they have actually extended the deadline for this crisis management plan to be put into place until next year. Being that we've already done the hard work and we've got everything pretty much finalized, we're going to move forward and we're going to put our plan into place. We think it's appropriate. We've already had the discussions. The district board is going to have time to review the plan. So we will have a plan in place well before Rotary International mandates the plan to be in place. So I think that's a huge benefit to the team that worked on this. Like I said, we spent many a Sunday afternoon talking through what to do if a tornado hits, what to do if there's a national security threat or something like that. So lots of discussions have taken place, and I think it'll be a great resource for us, and not only at the district level, but at the individual club level as well. Jan, what do you want to add to that?
No, I think that's true. The only thing is I would remind people that this is not just for youth exchange, but this is for any youth programs sponsored or activity sponsored by Rotary. So it could be as simple as if your club has some activity going on with a group of kids, Interact Kids or whatever, this plan would be in place, as well as Interact, Rotary, everybody. So
correct.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a very important piece of literature. I would highly recommend familiarizing yourself once it's approved. There's going to be contact trees, there's phone numbers, there's emails. There's all sorts of really, really great things to review and to prepare yourself for. As I was going through this process, obviously not obviously, but I don't have any children of my own, but I was thinking about what do I do when I make these decisions? And I would probably be that person that would be like, oh my gosh, what do I do? What do I do? So it was nice to have Jan as a sounding board. She's been through so many different experiences with youth exchange over the years, as to how we go about something and how Central States needs something documented versus how Rotary International needs something documented.
Yeah. And we should say that the committee was large. We had representatives from Youth Exchange, we had representatives from Interact, from RILA, Laura and I. So it was a large group that gave up their Sunday afternoons.
Yep, exactly. It wasn't just Jan and I.
No.
One thing to note with the crisis management plan, obviously, we're not the only people that come up with safety protocols and safety procedures. So as our students are participating in different activities, whether they're at a school activity, whether they're at RILA, we need to make sure that our crisis management plan fits in well and corresponds well to any other overarching security plans as well, or safety protocols. So if you're participating in youth activities, make sure that you kind of have a general idea of who is the person that I go to when something could go wrong, and how do I make sure that what we've got outlined in our Rotary plan aligns with what the school has or aligns with what RILA has. So like Jan mentioned, we had Ben, we had Michelle in our discussions. Jim was also involved in the discussion. So I think we've got a very comprehensive list, and I am very excited to be able to share it with you once we get that board approval. So are there any questions that anyone has on the crisis management plan? All right, I'm not seeing any in the chat, so I'm going to move us to the next slide. So I think here's where we're going to spend a majority of our discussion tonight. I think one of the big benefits that we have as clubs that participate in youth exchange is that we get that excitement every year when that new student walks off of the escalator at the airport with an exhausted face, scared crapless, because we've got all sorts of signs and flags and all sorts of stuff welcoming them. So making sure that we're keeping our club engaged and keeping involved in youth exchange with our time off, I think is really, really important to ensure that the future of exchange in our district remains strong. So I'm going to let Jan just give a little bit of a background as we kind of talk about the different items here.
Yeah, well, as most clubs, our club has been meeting virtually, and I would encourage all of your clubs, especially if you've had a youth exchange student, to perhaps have a couple of programs over the year. Maybe you contact somebody that has been an exchange student in your club, ask them to be the speaker at your Rotary club. I think that it keeps everybody involved. We had our most recent exchange student in Oregon was a winter student and went out the January before COVID hit in March. And I know we've talked to him a couple of times because he stayed in Brazil the entire year. So he did not come back until this past December. So he spent a whole year with COVID in Brazil. And, his story is wonderful to hear and important for us to do to keep those connections going. So I think if you have host families that have been involved, if you're thinking about signing up to do this in 22-23, I think you can have a panel of former host families come and talk to your club. They can tell you how much they benefited from this. I think that's a great opportunity. And I think we've always said that you have to have a youth exchange counselor. You also have to have a youth protection officer and a youth exchange officer, but you can have a larger committee that's involved in youth exchange. And I think if you can have little mini meetings with those groups to talk about how are you going to fundraise, how are you going to be prepared to re-enter youth exchange, I think it keeps the program active. You all know that if you've been involved in this, that we let you know whenever we have a background check that needs to be completed. Those are done annually. There has been an option for folks to take a year absence in that because we haven't had a program, and there is a minimal cost to doing the background checks. But as we get back in gear, I would ask you to make sure that you let Judy Steinhauer or me know that you're back in action, and we'll make sure that background check has been completed if you took a year hiatus and said that you just wanted to take a break. Because once we get commitments from clubs and clubs are getting ready to find students, you need to have your background checks done, because you're going to be actually involved with kids and interviewing and doing those sorts of things. So it's important that you have those checks done. And Brenda and I will be talking about when to set a face-to-face training session. Brenda may be stepping down because she has other exciting things planned for her future. And so if any of you out there who have been involved are interested in helping me with the training program, Brenda and I would love to talk with you, so that you can contact. I don't know, can you think of anything else to add, Laura?
No, so I just wanted to kind of share an experience about the virtual reunion that we had with our club. Again, the After Hours Club is kind of new to Youth Exchange. We've only done it 4 years now. We've had 4 exchange students over the years. And one of the first things that we did during our virtual time was to schedule a reunion and to ask each of our exchange students how had COVID affected their lives and how maybe it hadn't affected their lives. Eugene, our first student from Taiwan, we were asking about the masks and if people were frustrated about the masks and having to wear them. And I remember being here and feeling that people were feeling not necessarily attacked for having to wear them, but questioned and, really, really like, you're taking away my freedoms. And Eugene just basically said, no, it's fine. We put our masks on a regular basis. Masks in our culture weren't a negative thing. So it was really interesting to be able to hear from him about that. Clara was from Italy. Obviously, they were hit very, very hard. So we were expecting her to have struggled with lockdown and do all that. Well, turns out she was in Argentina, I think, for a lot of it. So she didn't have to experience that. She waited to go home until the lockdowns had kind of gone away. So one of the things that I think that I would really like our club to do is not only focus on those inbound students that came out to us, but also talk to some of the outbound students. How have they continued to live the youth exchange life after they've come back? I know it's so exciting to get to connect with people who are in a different country, but sometimes I forget that Aaron and Ethan went out and they got to experience a whole different community and a whole different culture. And I know when they were actually outbound students, I lived very vicariously through their lives. But connecting with those outbound students who have come back now, how did exchange impact their lives, and how did it reconnect them with maybe different friends or expose them to new things that changed their outlook on life? So one of the other items that I wanted to focus on too was the fundraising opportunities. It is hard to talk about fundraising now. I know After Hours had to cancel our big youth exchange fundraiser And I know that we're looking so forward to having another mini golf tournament. But thinking about different ways that you can fundraise and keep your club active in that fundraising model, I think would be a really nice opportunity to connect and to just keep the idea of exchange alive in your clubs.
I should also say that we have a small group of Rotex trying to get a good Rotex program going in this district. And one of the things that they've done this year is they have opened the opportunity for our outbound kids who came back in the middle of all of this COVID to get together and to talk with them. And so they've had a couple of sessions. The outbound coordinators have helped organize that with the Rotex kids. And I think that that's been a good support for them. So I am sure that they would have stories to tell if your club invited them to come and participate.
Can you explain what Rotex is? Thanks, Tony.
Rotex are kids that have, and Tony has that question. Rotex are kids that have been on exchange and been back generally at least a couple of years. And I think it was mentioned a little bit in the earlier program, but they form their own club with the support of the district and figure out what they want to do, how they can be involved. And of course, for all of those kids, their passion is youth exchange. So often they want to do things that involve youth exchange kids, in addition to whatever other kind of service activities and programs that they might want to do. But we have used those kids to some degree when we're doing orientations and trainings of our parents and our kids. We've used them when we do district interviews before we identify which kids we think would be good candidates for going on an outbound program, because they've lived the experience. They often understand the kids better than some of the Rotarians. They connect age-wise. They know what it's like to leave for a year, go to school in a different country, not know the language when you arrive. So they're a wonderful support group, and we are working as a district to try to get our Rotex more involved. Some districts have huge Rotex programs, and that's been an area where we are relatively weak. So we are working on that.
Great.
I see in the chat that Madison South is compiling videos of Six Paths exchange students. That's also another thing. I know that for our club, during all of this, we had our 75th reunion. And one of the things I had started doing was contacting former exchange students and asking them to give us a video clip of where they are now and how Rotary impacted their lives. I think clubs could easily do that, and it's really neat to see kids that maybe you've hosted, 5, 6, 7 years ago, and see what they're doing now. And they like to share that story. So
perfect. And I see Steph asked, what do other clubs do for fundraisers to help support the cost of youth exchange? So if your club does any sort of fundraisers, please feel free to put those in the chat so that we can maybe talk about them or share ideas, borrow ideas. We obviously don't want to step on anybody's toes for fundraisers, but if you're far enough away, we might borrow some of your ideas. All right. So one of the things that Jan and I really wanted to talk about too is the support that the district offers for a youth exchange. So you can see here, the district support, we have training twice a year, assistance with processes and paperwork, and then issues as they arise. Jan is the go-to person for all of these things. I think if anything has come up in my club, the question or the next step always is, well, what does Jan say? Or did we tell Jan? Or does Jan know about it? So I think with the crisis management plan, that's going to give us a little bit of a step up to say, okay, is Jan the first person that needs to know? But still, Jan's probably going to need to know about it. So Jan, let's talk through a little bit about the different support, and maybe if Brenda wants to come on, talk about the training that we offer on an annual basis or a semi-annual basis. Brenda, if you're interested, feel free to let me know and I can bring you up onto the screen if you want to give us a few details about that training.
And that would be fine, Brenda, if you want to add to this. The the Central States has required that we have face-to-face training, ideally once a year, and so we tend to offer it in the fall and in the winter. At those trainings, we encourage all the youth exchange officers and counselors to attend, and we go through sort of the nuts and bolts and details of how you host an exchange student, what kind of paperwork is needed, what kind of processes, what kind of timelines. We will be adding information on the crisis management training plan this year as well. It's an intense several-hour training, but I feel it's important even for people who have been doing this year after year, because it seems that every year there's something that has changed. But it's a quick overview, and people leave with written materials, and I tell them, when you actually get to this point, if you have a question, call. There is no stupid question, and any of us are happy to answer those questions. There are issues that arise with students, schools, host families that we can't predict. So we usually spend some time talking about situations that have arisen or what you might do if such and such occurs. But know that when you're in the middle of the situation, give us a call if you need some guidance and help. And certainly let us know if there is anything major going on, because it's been my experience that if we can nip things in the bud early, we have far less difficult situation than if we wait and things happen and nobody's addressed anything. There are also requirements at the Central States level and at Rotary International level to keep people in the loop in case something happens that we might need to send a student home, or a student might be sent home that we have on exchange. So being better informed is certainly helpful. What else? I also should say, when we say training twice a year, we're talking about the long-term program, but those of you that have a student involved in the short-term program, there's also orientation for those students and training as well. I mean, anybody that's involved in any kind of youth exchange program can participate in the long-term training as well. I don't know what else. I'm looking at the notes to see if there's anything else.
Brenda, did we get you on to, can we hear you?
I don't see you, Brenda.
It says 4. Oh, there she is.
There's Brenda.
There she
Hi,
is.
Brenda.
Hi.
So Brenda has been my buddy with the face-to-face trainings for a number of years now. We kind of do this together, and she's the tech expert. And because her family has hosted a bunch of kids, she also lends a lot of personal experience to the conversation. And Kathy Stats mentions in the chat that it's also a great way to meet other youth exchange related Rotarians from other clubs. And I do think that that's important.
I think that's a really important aspect of it, is getting to talk with other people that, especially if you're new to one of the positions in your club, is being able to connect with people that are close to you and to get the support that you need from others that have already done it. That can be really helpful, but Jan's the main support you get.
And I see that several clubs have had some virtual Rotary meetings in which they've had the involvement of youth exchange kids. I attended one offered by Baraboo. We had a student who was a very involved youth exchange student who had to enter exchange year early because she had a major medical issue that required her to be medically evacuated. And it's now been a number of years, and she is doing very well. And her club invited her to give a program. And they also invited several of us to attend who knew her. And it was wonderful to see the progress that she's made since she had to leave, with a medical need, and that she had a brain injury as a result of an aneurysm, well, not an aneurysm, but brain bleed. And so when she left, none of us knew if she would ever be able to walk or talk or do any of those sorts of things again. So to see that her life is continuing and that she's gained a lot of those skills was wonderful. And I think it was also very positive for her to be able to participate. So I appreciated being invited to participate in that meeting as well. So.
One more thing that I wanted to call out with the district support, not necessarily from a district level, but again, going back to that Cooley Region Youth Exchange Council that we've created in the La Crosse area. We also do all of our host family trainings together. Again, there's certain trainings that need to be done as you're a host family, as you're bringing in students, as your outbound students are going outbound. So what we've done is we've partnered to come up with a PowerPoint. We find a central location, mostly at UWL, because Lisa can get us a really nice room with a nice big screen. And we bring all of those host families together to have the inbound and outbound trainings at that time. What that really does is establishes like a continuity of that incoming student's family. They know who they're going to be hosting. So if the first and the third host family live really close together, maybe they bond over the fact that they're going to be close neighbors and they're going to share the same student. If the second and the third host family live a little bit further apart, maybe they bond about how they're going to connect and make sure that that student has a nice transition along with the help of the YEO and the YEC. Oh, go ahead, Jan.
No, I was going to say that is an excellent thing that your area does that I don't think is done anywhere else. The goal is always to try and have at least two, and preferably three host families identified before the student arrives. And I think there are a number of clubs, if they're able to do that, that they may do an orientation with those 2 or 3 families. But to the best of my knowledge, the La Crosse area is the only area that does group host family training. And I think it's a wonderful goal. Because like you said, it's you have some continuity and they have connections with each other, and that's good for problem solving in the future.
Yeah, if anybody would like that PowerPoint, I am pretty sure I have it saved, so I can definitely pass that along. Brenda, if you'd like a copy of it from a district level, just to be able to pass out, I'd be happy to share that as well. I just think it's been really, really helpful. It gives a one night. We've had to do it a couple of times, where we don't maybe have all of the host families identified, but at least you can knock out 6 or 7 trainings in one night instead of as a YEO or YEC potentially having to do the same training over and over and over again. So we extend that invitation to all of the clubs in the Cooley region area who can attend, and very, very helpful as far as scheduling and just accomplishing everything that we need. So
I should also, those of you that are YEOs and are thinking about committing for 2022, one of the new requirements of Rotary International is that you must have an emergency host family identified. So we'll be talking about how we're going to do that. I think it can be a family that you've already used, but they will have to have all the current background information and background checks and application and all that sort of thing. So I'm not exactly how we'll do it, but just know that there needs to be an emergency host family. And I think some of the reason for that is what would happen if COVID broke out in a host family home, or if the student got COVID or whatever, and you needed to move that child quickly. In the past, we have been able to use like a YEO or YEC for an emergency couple week kind of time break. But the most recent information I got from Rotary International is that we will not be able to do that. That we actually have to have a family identified who would be an emergency family. So we'll be talking more about that when we start having training and when I know a little bit more about the details.
Yeah, Nancy, that's a great point. I kind of forgot that we do a welcome picnic for all of our youth exchange students once they've arrived in the area. So if you were on the meeting yesterday and you saw the Bill and Andy Roadshow talking about Moon Tunes and La Crosse, what we do is we invite all of the youth exchange students. We do a potluck style dinner, and we invite all their host families to, again, get to know them once the student has arrived. So that way the student has that opportunity to connect prior to potentially moving in with that second and third host family. also introduce the idea of exchange to all of the people at Moon Tunes. So I've been nominated to get up in front of that Moon Tunes crowd and introduce our students, promote the idea of hosting a student. It was really interesting this last time that we did it. We were standing up on stage, and by the time we even got back to our seat, somebody from the crowd got up and came over and started talking in the natural language of one of our inbound students. So making that connection and really sharing with your community that you've got these students that are here and that they want to learn about the local area. I think it's a really good opportunity for them to not only meet each other, but also their host families and then some community members as well. So yeah. Janine, speaking of the online training, I think that's a really, really great idea. I know that Martha, the district trainer, has been looking at additional training opportunities as in-person trainings may or may not be as easy to accomplish as what we used to. So I definitely think we have some opportunities for virtual trainings, incorporating district conference and training and all of those activities as well. So great idea. Make sure to pass that along to the district training staff too.
Yeah. And we will have to find out what Rotary International will allow us to do virtually and not face-to-face, because they do have some requirements that certain items have to be conducted in a face-to-face setting. But with COVID, they may be more lenient and allow us to have.
Yeah, they might have to change that.
They might have to, but I know we have tried webinars at times. We've tried to do webinars throughout the year as certain topics might be most relevant. What do you need to do to get ready for your student arrival, for example? What do you have to do towards the end of the year to have everything in place for the student to go back home? What we have found is that we tend to get the same kids, the same adults participating that come all the time, and not necessarily those who maybe need to attend the webinar. So and Brenda, I too, are open to other ways of doing this if it's going to get people more actively involved.
Perfect. Janine, the question that she had here, are there tips for engaging high schools in committing to an exchange student enrollment or committing to exchange student enrollment, given that they're still overwhelmed with trying to serve local students? I know that Jack had reached out to the La Crosse School District, and I know in our brief interactions via email, they seemed still engaged as long as we were, following all of their safety procedures and protocols. So I think at this point, I don't know if there's any specific tips to offer, but I would just open the door for those conversations as soon as possible. If you've got a contact, if you've got a person, if you've got a friend of a person who knows a teacher who might hang out with or have lunch with the student, the counselor, feel free to engage in those conversations and just ask the questions and say, what do you need from our Rotary Club to ensure that we've got a safe and a well thought out planned exchange for the future. So knowing that we have a full year, a year and a couple of months to really bring that student in, I think we've got time to embrace those conversations and to learn what the school district's needs are. Again, similarly with host families, if you've got a host family that you think might do a really good job, if that student comes in and they're not vaccinated for some reason, maybe their country doesn't have access, or maybe it's not a requirement at that point. We obviously don't know what those requirements will be. Making sure that we're setting those standards with our host families and the schools at the same time. I think the sooner we engage in those conversations, the better prepared we'll be for when we actually get and start the interview process and go through those steps.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, I think La Crosse was one of the districts that said they would be happy to take a student, but they had to be vaccinated. And I'm not sure that we can require a COVID vaccine because it's just emergency approved. And I think unless it's fully approved in this country, we cannot require it. And I'm not sure how that works for other countries as well. So those are discussions that we'll certainly have to keep having over the next year. And at both the central states and probably at the state level. So.
All right, I'm going to move on to the next slide here. So we have just a list of important dates that we wanted to just kind of talk through with you. Jan's already talked about the commitment forms and when they're due to the district. There's a little asterisk behind that July because Jan knows that she will take them later, but
The more
she wants to lay the hammer down and make sure that we're prepared. So July is the due date.
I'm hoping that we had 26 clubs indicating that they would host the year before last. And I'm really hoping that all 26 of those clubs will once again be willing to host. And I would love to have a few more. I haven't talked to Carl specifically, but I'm thinking that the summer application is probably going to be due for the step kids the February 1st of 2022. But we're going to need the commitment forms for both the long-term programs much earlier, this July. And that's because we spend a year training those kids and families and getting them ready to go on exchange the following year. So it's a 3-year process. First year getting ready, second year actually on exchange, and third year coming back as a rebound student, which is why we need that information so much earlier than we do for the short-term exchange kids. District interviews are generally the first Sunday in November. So those would be the first Sunday in November of 2021, which is just a little less than a year when those students would go out. And I remind clubs that before those district interviews, the clubs also need to interview the student. They sort of interview the student and make sure they're a good candidate before you send them on for the district interviews. And those of us that have been doing this for a long time know that, but if you're a new club, that may not be something you're familiar with. Reminder.
That's another thing, Jan, I'm going to jump in quick. That's another thing that we do as a Cooley Region Youth Exchange Council. Jack is the mastermind behind all of our interview processes. He takes the chance and takes the opportunity to get all of our interviews set up, make sure that we've got the right students, make sure that we've got a group of Rotarians, and we divide and conquer again. Bring all of these students into the Children's Museum, since Ann Snow has been great at getting us that option. This year we did do some virtual ones just to make sure that we were prepared in case exchange did not get canceled. But what we also do with those pre-interviews is we bring in the needers. And I say that like everybody knows who the needers are. But every one of their kids has gone on exchange. They have hosted exchange. A lot of their students or a lot of their kids have been yo-yos where they've gone on exchange, come back, and then re-gone it back out on exchange. They're a great resource to help these parents whose kid came home with a pamphlet from something that in class and they don't know anything about it. It's nerve-wracking as a parent to send your kid out for 11 months at a time and not know where they're going or what country or any of that stuff. So having a family that is well-versed in exchange and students who have participated in exchange be there as a calming sounding board for these nervous families, these nervous parents. So one of the things that I think really helps the students get excited and helps their parents calm down just a little bit is having that extra family there to help out with those interviews and those initial questions. So really having just a group of people who can help out and participate together and just co-organize some of these activities really makes it a lot easier for the clubs in our area.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Jan.
Okay, I was looking through our list. A reminder that we don't have very many clubs in our district host winter exchange students, but I know my club has, and Madison downtown has had 2 back-to-back winter exchange students. It's fun because you often get students from different parts of the world than you would get if you do the standard summer through, like September through July. You get the winter kids tend to come in January and stay through December. So they're part of 2 academic years. In our district, we tend to have them join as juniors, and then they follow the peers they already know up into the senior year, the second year. They also get to meet 2 different groups of exchange kids because they're here for 2 different summer groups. And so they get to know a lot more exchange kids when they're here. So I would encourage you to consider a winter exchange if you've never done that before. And there are scholarship opportunities. We do have a Central State Scholarship that is available for kids who have financial need. The district has a scholarship available, and we're in the process of considering a third scholarship, developing a third scholarship that might also try and encourage us to get a more diverse population. And I know that Janine O'Rourke has agreed to help develop that. So if there's anybody else here who would like to work on that scholarship committee, that would be wonderful. So, anybody have any other questions?
That was my last slide. So let me just stop sharing so our faces get bigger again.
And you're right on schedule. It says we could, we're scheduled to be done at 8:15, but we could go as late as 8:30. So I think if there are questions.
Yeah. So I see here, Tom, spent a few years with Youth Exchange. You are all doing a great job. Keep up the fantastic work. I'm hoping that the Fitchburg Verona Club will get involved. Tom, if you need any promotions, Jan and I will be there. We will help to encourage, and we will help out to get more people involved.
And Tom is a great promoter himself, because the one district scholarship is the Marshall McKinney Scholarship, and he is the Marshall McKinney.
Good.
Jan,
go ahead.
can you talk about what positions besides mine that might be available for those who are interested in joining the district
Sure.
youth exchange team?
Well, now that we are in the process of getting our crisis management plan approved, the next big goal I have to do this year is to work on succession planning for all of the district positions. Brenda right now is our district trainer and our district registrar, and we've talked informally and kind of see that as possibly two different positions.
Yeah.
Brenda, it's okay to share that you have plans to join the Peace Corps, which is why you'll be leaving us once the Peace Corps says we can go abroad. So
Possibly January 22.
yeah, so we're definitely going to have this succession planning worked on before then. We have a new STEP team in place, so that's in pretty good shape. I think Judy Steinhauer would like at some point in time in the future to retire from her job. So it would be nice if we could find somebody that would like to be the administrative, like the chair assistant. She does all the background checks and a lot of those sorts of things. And if she's not ready to retire today, but it would be nice if somebody could work with her and learn the ropes of that job. We, as a district team, need to have some conversations about whether or not we want to modify any of the responsibilities that right now are shared by the outbound, inbound, and me. And see if in some districts, some of what I do is done by inbound coordinators or outbound coordinators. We have found, though, that it works much better to have 2 or 3 people in each of these core positions instead of expecting just one person to do it all. So we are always looking for people who might like to put their finger in the pot and kind of see what it's like and see if this might be something they would be interested in doing. I know that Rebecca has talked about possibly working with Tammy this year on inbound sorts of things. And the other one is we eventually need a new district chair, because
I was waiting for that one, Jan.
I am been scheduled to become the chair of Central States, and that turnover, the way the process works is you are the chair, and then prior to that you're the vice chair. And I was going to probably be the vice chair this coming year, but I think Brent, who's the chair, is going to stick around another year because his last year or two has been dealing with COVID and he hasn't actually had the opportunity to be too involved in kids. So I think I can continue to do what I'm doing for a year or two, but it would be nice to find somebody who would like to consider taking this role, and so that we could do some co-work together and sort of train somebody for that position. So that's what I know is available. But like I said, as long as we have teams of people, it seems to go better. Tony Pavon has worked with the outbound program for quite a while and is kind of wanting to step back. And Overly is willing to continue. And we have a new person, John, who has actually been involved with the crisis management plan team, who is stepping up. But again, a third person on that team and a third person on the inbound group would always be welcome. So we'll be doing that this probably late summer, early fall. We'll be getting involved in that. So if you have any interest in talking about the succession planning and what might be involved in different positions, I would welcome your inclusion in that. I think Janine has indicated she'd be willing to be a part of that group as well. So.
Yeah, I think succession planning for the youth exchange programs in our district is a huge factor. And Jan is such a wealth of knowledge. And, one day she might want to retire on a beach, get out of that. Move out of Oregon, out of that very, very pretty house that Bill showed everybody yesterday on the Andy Road show. I looked at him during that and I said, "Is that really Jan's house?" He goes, "Yes." and for those of you who don't know, it's very full at the moment since there are 10 people in here and my daughter's about to deliver sometime in the next 2 weeks. So then we'll be at 11. Jan has had a very busy COVID season. That is for but yeah, absolutely.
I've gotten COVID though, so that's great.
Right. If anybody is interested in stepping up and filling some of these roles, I think it's a really good opportunity to put your name in the hat and just get interested before we lose Brenda to the Peace Corps, which is an awesome opportunity, or lose Jan to whatever retirement location she wants to go to. And a lot of these people have been in these positions for a very long time. So they are just a huge wealth of knowledge and being able to share all of the information. So I know Jan and I have talked about documenting processes and, making sure that we've got everything kind of in a nice central location. So I know that we're going to set everybody up for success in the future. This is kind of my first full foray into coming in at the district level and engaging with Jan on more of a direct learning type of a situation. And the amount of stuff that she's got up in this noggin is just incredible. And our district is so strong when it comes to youth exchange and when it comes to the knowledge that we have. Tammy brings in the Doug and Sharon knowledge that she's had. I joked with Tammy that she's been involved with youth exchange since she came out of the womb, basically.
Her mom and dad are so involved. Yep.
Her entire life. We've got Jack over here in the La Crosse area, who is our go-to dictionary for youth exchange activities. So there's such this excitement and this energy that follows in District 6250. And I really hope that we can continue that energy with incoming members and incoming leadership opportunities with new people from different clubs and just really growing what youth exchange is in our district. So with that, we are at our 45 minutes. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to put those in the chat right now. I'm not sure if any of the other sessions are still going. They might be ending as well right around now. But I really appreciate everybody coming to listen to me and Jan. I appreciate all of the knowledge that Jan has provided to me over the year, and all it's done is grown my excitement for exchange. And I can't wait to see that tired, worn down kid come off of an airplane in
looking for a
year
sign,
and
hoping somebody's there to pick them up, right?
Exactly.
You've done a great
year
job,
and
Laura,
4 months.
as
So.
a youth liaison position, because you've really taken that to heart. And I think that all of us that are involved in youth programs are very happy you're doing what you're doing. So.
Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure working with you all so far. So very excited for what the years have to come. I'm still here for 2 more years in this role. So
that's good.
my face again.
Well, and you're part of the After Hours Club. So you're involved in the having a student filling out a commitment form to get your 5th.
Yes.
Right.
I'll get Lisa right on top of that. I know she's in the session. So
That'd be great.
Thank you so much, everybody. Oh, so great to see everyone, even if it was just your names. I know you're here and I can picture your faces. So thanks again. And I hope you guys enjoy the rest of the week. There's lots of great stuff coming up throughout the rest of the week.
It was a good evening. Thank you all for participating.
Megan, do you know if the other sessions are still going?
Rotaract and Interact is done. So I think one other one is still going.
Okay. The New to Youth Exchange. Maybe we can go check out what Carl and Tammy are talking about.
Hold on,
Jan,
I'll check. Which one's still
Okay,
going besides?
What did you say, Laura?
Oh, Rotaract's still going?
Did you know that Matthew McConaughey was a youth
So
exchange?
New to Youth Exchange is
I
over?
did not know that until Carl and Tammy
Okay.
told me that the other day. Yeah.
In fact, I think he might have been written up in one of the Rotarian magazines, I think.
Oh, I thought you meant written up for doing something wrong.
I think there might have been an article about him some years ago.
It sounds like all the other ones are pretty much wrapping up, same as what we did here too. So, but I honestly think we had the most people.
Well, I hope that some of those new youth programs give us some more business.
Yeah.
That would be great.
Absolutely.
No, you guys did great.
Absolutely.
And you gave a lot of good information. It wasn't any hardcore push.
No. Well, I think looking at the names, we were singing to the choir to a large degree.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they
Yeah.
also, what
Not all of
how do you get it restarted up after COVID? And
Right.
what do you do to get that done? So I'm sure there's a lot of questions around that and a lot of good ideas too, especially with fundraising. And no, it was a fun session.
Good. I'm glad. And that wraps up my face on district conference
I was gonna say,
2021.
you can take a big sigh. You've been working hard on this.
I told Michelle McGrath today, I'm very excited for tonight, and I'm very excited that Bill asked me to be a part of it, but I'm also very excited for it to be 8:31
Yeah.
for when my time is done and I just get to be a participant going forward.
Which is
So,
Yeah,
You've
you
done a
can pour
great
that
job.
glass of wine now.
yeah, exactly. My husband actually brought me my dinner.
That's it. John says, "Can I
so
bring
I-
you dinner?" And I said, "I don't think I can eat while we're talking."
I said I have to be on screen. So while you were talking, I don't know if you caught me take a couple spoonfuls just because I needed to get something in my mouth. So
I have to get that next. So.
all right. Well,
Thanks,
so
y'all.
good to see your face, Jan. Good to see you again, Megan.
You too.
And we'll see you throughout the week.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.